Hello, 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 everyone. We are live. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We are going to get ready to have a great discussion, all centered on leadership. For those of you who have not yet shared, go ahead and share. Hopefully you saw the intro that asked you to grab your friends and get ready to have a vibrant discussion with our panelists here. So let's get started. Who am I? Okay, so the first thing, let me just tell you the topic first of all. So the topic is the Kamala Effect. And of course, I think that is self-explanatory, but we're going to dive a little bit in and just really bisect it to say, what exactly do we mean by that? But before we do that, so my name is Judy-Ann Chung. I am, of course, your brilliance activator. I help women to achieve their goals by strengthening their confidence, be unapologetic about unboxing their talents, which allows them to activate their brilliance and soar. Now, for today's format, it's going to be a little bit different because, as you can see, we have a panel here with us. And I am going to kick it off first by asking Michelle to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Judy-Ann, for inviting me to be a part of this panel today. I'm really excited about what we are going to discuss today. I am Michelle Edelen. I am the Excellence Engineer. I am a personal and professional development coach, and I love working with women to help you own and activate all of the excellence that's inside of you. So I'm really excited about today.
Awesome. So then we're going to go over to Jovita.
Hello, I'm Jovita A. I am the Senior Environmental Justice Organizer for Center for Biological Diversity and also the co-founder Vice President for Democracy Green.
Judy-Ann, you're on mute.
That would be nice if I came off mute. Trinity? Yeah, Trinity. You're muted though.
I'm Trinity Edelen. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Greensboro. I am striving to be a college professor, and I plan on starting my doctoral program fairly soon.
All righty. And then Cristina.
Hi, I'm Cristina Sanchez, and currently I am in the Doctor of Physical Therapy program at Emory University, which is in Atlanta. So that's kind of my path, is to go into the clinical field.
Right. And we have one other panelist. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Hopefully she'll sort it out and she'll join us shortly. So be on the lookout for her, right? That was Kyra. So ladies, welcome. And thank you so much for agreeing to come along on this ride with us. Michelle and I are both excited. We both share the same passion of wanting to uplift women to just help you get to your destination a little bit quicker than we did. And I think Michelle would even speak on that because she made a very good point in our conversations. But let's dive right in. So we spoke earlier, some of you on my page may have seen where I posted a video with Shirley Chisholm back in 1972, where she actually was, campaigning for presidency, right? And it was a very powerful exchange that she had. While she was not successful in her bid for presidency, she was successful in paving the way in terms of just getting the notion in people's head that there could actually be a woman leader someday, right? And if we got through, we came through the past, of course, we had Hillary Clinton. She tried, she was not successful. But the point is, again, the seeds were being planted along the way. So sometimes you may not see the growth immediately visible, right? But the seeds are being planted. So at some point, it will definitely sprout up and you will see that tree. Now, that tree in this case that we're referring to is Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So if you also remember, she said a couple of her quotes, right, on the day where it was projected that she was the Vice President elect winner, I should say. So she said that her mother used to say to her, "You may be the first to do many things, but make sure that you are not the last." So I think that is the same premise that Michelle and I want to work with you guys on, just to make sure that we're on the journey. We have gotten to certain levels in our careers and just in our personal lives, and we want to make sure that we are doing our part to pave the way. She also went on to say, dream with ambition and lead with conviction. Now, on that note, what I want to do now is just turn it over to our panelists just to say, okay, the women across, the US at this point were celebrating because they felt that they had basically now broken this glass ceiling, because there's now a woman in the second highest position in the United States of America. Of course, if we go globally, we'll have other leaders that are actually either vice presidents of their countries or chancellors of their countries. But we're now talking about in the US, where it seemed like it was so unmanageable. So the first question I want to ask is, what effect do you think that Kamala is having on the glass ceiling for women today, and why? Who wants to take that question?
Okay, well, I'm always ready.
Go ahead, go ahead.
To jump in.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that many of us have worked hard to push through the glass ceiling, and we've had varying levels of success at doing that. And there have been some of us who've been able to put cracks in it. There have been some of us who've been able to scratch it. There have been some of us who've been able to get to that glass ceiling and pull some other people along with us. But I think what Kamala Harris has been able to do is to actually punch a hole in it. And now that she's punched a hole in it, I think a couple of things. One is, how will we get through that hole? How will we help others get through that hole? But there's also that other side that's fighting to close that hole up. And we have to be very mindful and cognizant of that, because we're excited and there's a sense of euphoria right now, but there's a battle ahead of us. And we don't need to lose sight of that. And that's why it's so important to me to have these young ladies here who are coming up and they're running hard. I think it was Common that in that glory rap, he said you need the wisdom of the elders and maybe the strength or the endurance, or some word he used, of the young people. And we do, but it when it comes together, we can continue to go through that hole that Kamala Harris has punched through, the glass ceiling, but we also have to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and not become complacent with the hole that she's put in there.
Right. And I think that's well said, Michelle, because as you said, yes, she has put a pretty big hole, right? But remember we had the live before where you and I were on the same live before, where we spoke about, Ginsburg, where he said, okay, she did put a hole there too. But now we've seen where, Kamala, she did put a sizable hole. But as you said, let's not rest on our laurels and think, okay, we have arrived. We still have a lot of work to do. Right. So any ladies, do you want to add anything? And I think Kyra has just been able to join us. Hello there, Kyra. So, okay. So if you don't have anything else to share on that one, and guys, also just remember one of the things about StreamYard is that sometimes if people are commenting on your page, I'm not necessarily able to see them. So if you want to monitor your page and, speak to a comment that you want to, feel free to do so they don't think we're ignoring them. Alrighty. So
I did want to add on to that, if you don't mind. I really appreciated everything that Miss Edelen was saying. And as I was thinking about this question, I think I kind of gave myself a little bit of reality check. And at least for me, the term glass ceiling is a very widely used term. I've heard it multiple times in various contexts and conversations. But I think that in my mind, and maybe in a lot of other women's minds, it's very narrowly defined. And for me, what that meant was when I think of glass ceiling, I think sometimes I put limits on it, which is, contradicting to what the word actually means. Maybe I would say, okay, I can like the furthest or the largest achievement or the furthest point of success that I see like within my proximity of like, you know, women that are family, women that are friends or friends of friends, like that's what I can aim towards. But I think that with her becoming vice president-elect, she kind of redefined, or at least for me, my definition of glass ceiling as something that you don't even have like a role model for maybe, or like you haven't even seen anyone do it before, just because it hasn't been precedented. Like you can recreate your own path. You don't necessarily have to follow in the same path of somebody else. You can use those steps to kind of help guide you, but then you can reimagine what that top tier level of achievement is for yourself.
Right. And you have a good point there, because as you said, sometimes the best way to go about invoking change is, as you said, is to not necessarily follow an identical path, but to reimagine that path. And as you know, as I said in my opening statement, be unapologetic about unboxing your talent, right? So that speaks exactly to one of the things that you're saying here about following your path. So one of the comments that we have here from Kyra is, Kamala also gives us women the energy to fight the battle and know that it's worth it and it is achievable. Absolutely well said. All righty. So let's just move on from there. So I think, Jovita, I'm going to go over to you. The question here is, do you think that the current climate has fueled the drive for greater gender equity and diversity in positions of leadership throughout the labor force?
Thank you for the question. So absolutely. I think during this time right now, we are seeing a lot of push for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, in schools. We're having an intentional focus on making sure that everyone is going to be able to work together. And we're actually taking some of these terms, whether it be racial, gender, sexuality, whatever it may be, we're taking these terms and we're actually taking a deep dive within it. And so I think because this time is demanding that we have an intentional focus on these things, is providing an opportunity for women to be able to break certain barriers that unfortunately were not broken before. And so we're in a time where, you know, women are writing their own job descriptions. They're being able to, they're negotiating properly for new positions. They're being valued more because, let's be frank, you know, we are one of the most educated groups of people, especially Black women, most educated group. And so that can no longer be ignored. And so I think we're thinking about, you know, just being powerful women that we are and being able to position ourselves to make sure that we have positions that are appropriate for our education and our skill set. I think moving forward is going to be non-negotiable as far as what positions we're going to be able to hold. And it's not going to take 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. It's going to take about 5.
Right. And I love what you just said. And one of the keys that I heard, 2 keys in particular, right? Even though you said a mouthful, which I love, but the 2 core things that stood out for me, what you said, is that negotiation, because I do think it's a pet peeve of mine where I don't think women sometimes really truly negotiate the value of what they bring to the table, right? So a lot of times we just simply take the first offer, not realizing that the first offer was their bottom line offer, right? Because we didn't do the requisite research to understand for this particular job or this business arrangement or partnership or collaboration, what is the true value of it. So I love that you touched on that, because I think that's highly important. That will also help our trajectory upward. Then the other thing that you also said, which ties back into what Cristina said, is about creating new paths for us, new job description. It ties right into what she said about not necessarily following the status quo, right? So I completely love that, and I see the correlation there. And of course, you guys, you have your families and friends that are completely cheering you on here. So kudos to everyone. So moving forward is going to be non-negotiable. Okay, all right. So she is basically quoting what you said. She says, yes to all things. Things have and will continue to shift. Okay, so she's basically quoting some of the things you said. So of course you can see that the things that you're saying are inspiring and of course empowering. So kudos. All righty. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, hey, Michelle, I just want to chime in. And I think that word negotiation is a word that every single woman, young girl, little girl, whatever age you are, You need to add that to your vocabulary, and you need to know the definition of it, and you need to know what it means to you, because there are things in your life that you are going to have to negotiate. There are things in your life that are going to be totally non-negotiable, and you need to know the difference and understand the difference and understand it early, because whether it's a relationship with that little boy that you like, there are negotiables and non-negotiables.
Right.
Or it's that scholarship that you're trying to get for whatever level of school, that you're trying to accomplish. Kyra is a basketball player, and she has a desire to play basketball in college. And I know at that level that you don't necessarily get to negotiate your scholarship, so to speak. But I do think that you need to in entering into the recruiting phase of your high school career, you need to know your value. You need to know what it is that you bring to a basketball team, and don't settle for the first thing that comes your way. There are a lot of schools out here, honey. There are a lot of schools that you can get a scholarship from, but negotiation is something that I think we as women have almost been taught to shy away from, because it's like, oh, you're being selfish, or you think you all that, you're doing too much. Well, yes, I am doing too much. And if you don't like it, then I need you to step to the side, because if I keep doing too much, and I'm gonna teach my daughter to do too much, and I'm gonna teach Cristina Sanchez to do too much, and Jovita and Kyra and all of us, what I'm teaching as a coach, I basically teach you to do too much.
Right.
Too much, you're gonna find in some instances isn't even gonna be enough. So you gotta be able to negotiate. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Trinity. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this is actually a good thing for me, because that's something that I have struggled with for a long time. Especially, I feel like most of the times I downplay my value or my worth, or even my education. I'm very knowledgeable in the subject that I would like to teach, but at the same time, when I get around my colleagues, I don't show that same value. And then thinking about, when I'm about to apply for jobs and things, negotiating, I feel like I do not negotiate, because I don't know. Sometimes I don't feel up to the same standard as them, even though I am. So I think in Kamala, and even, with Jovita, because she does a lot with politics and things, seeing them advocate so much and seeing them just be so bold in who they are and what they believe in and what they stand for, I feel like that even helps somebody. Even, me and Jovita are close in age, but it still is inspiring to me, because I'm like, okay, if she can do it, right where she is, then so can I. So I feel like seeing it on I'll say local, home front level, and then also seeing it where Kamala is, I feel like that has helped me to be like, oh, okay. So let me not be afraid. Let me not, kind of downplay who I am. Let me just walk in who I am, and in all my excellence, and just do what has to be done. So I definitely feel like, and even with Cristina, like watching her and then listening to her talk and, grow since high school, seeing her come into who she is, like all of that is very empowering. So I think that, being able for young girls, being able to see it locally, and then also at the level that Kamala is, I feel like, it's having a double effect.
I am so proud of you. So just so you guys know, I have a mama bear complex. So you don't have to be my daughter for me to be proud of you, right? So I am so happy about what you just said, because you just made me even more know that even the work that I do as a coach, as your mom and I do similar coaching. I have a higher focus on the confidence brilliance piece, right? However, you just literally just validated for me, right, even more so why my work is important, why I stress and be unapologetic about unboxing your talents, because you just said a while ago, you're smart, all those different things, but you just sometimes don't feel comfortable enough, not because you don't have the skill sets, not because you don't have the education or the expertise, but you just don't have enough of that confidence. And that is something, Trinity, that you can learn. You were born with it. It's just that you forgot along the way just how great you really are. And to Michelle's point about, saying that you're all that, well, honey, I love when people tell me that. Yes, darling, I'm all that.
I am
and
all
I
that.
such a smile.
Okay. Thank you. That's when you say thank you for the compliment. Thank you for the compliment. I'm good.
Oh my gosh, you realize that?
Right.
Right. All right. So I love that. But I also want to pull Kyra into the conversation because Michelle, you had spoke about Kyra playing basketball. So Kyra, you want to share a little bit about yourself with us real quickly so we can pull you in? We don't want to leave you out.
Yeah. So I am a junior in high school, and speaking on what Trinity said, it's very easy for me to lack confidence in things that I do, and especially basketball, because I tend to compare myself to others and other players like me. And so I guess I'm still in the process of learning how to get that confidence and telling myself that I am good, if not better than some of these people, and like maintaining that confidence in order for myself to be successful. And I think Kamala is a great example of that. She doesn't confine herself to a box, and she is very independent, and that's shown through what she does.
All right, awesome. As they say on the commercial, awesome sauce. Okay, so one of the things says yes, or you are scared you're going to lose the opportunity. And you see, I guess Kyra was talking about when we were speaking about that negotiation, or when Michelle also said about, possible that scholarship, etc. But you know what, though? I always operate on the premise that if I've done my research, right, and I know the value of what I'm going to bring, and if you notice, I keep saying the value of what I bring because I'm not a fan of the say, oh, no, my worth. No, darling, my worth is not measurable. Now, the work that I do is measurable, right? So I just want to make sure about our mindset there. So if you have done the requisite research and you know the value of the work that you're bringing to the table, if somebody says no, it's an okay. Why? Because they were trying to undervalue your work. Because again, you've done the research, you know what it's worth. So the someone who comes along that wants to be fair-minded is going to, and understand your value, is going to pay you or offer that particular contract, scholarship, whatever it's worth. All right. So let's move on from there. Now, I think I want to, let me see the time. Okay, we're good on time. Okay, so what is the impact does Kamala's elevation have on specific generational segments of our society, dealing with the millenniums, the Gen X's, Z's, baby boomers, of course, baby boomers and seniors, Michelle, that you me and you, who wants to speak to that?
I would like to say something on that. I saw one of my Facebook friends who is an educator, I believe for maybe middle school. She had posted earlier this week about how one of her students had messaged her and just said, now that I see Kamala do this, it kind of impacted her like, oh, okay, so maybe I can do this as well. So You're already seeing, the younger kids who probably, or let me not generalize, who may have different levels of understanding as it relates to politics. Mm-hmm. They're seeing this and they're just like, oh, okay, so if she's in this position, then so can I. I can be in this position as well. So it is good to see, the young people, even if they don't fully understand the impact of or the importance of what's going on, they are getting a general idea. And I think that general idea can grow into something beautiful if it is nurtured. So I think that's why it's important, for her to see Kamala, but then also to see the people in her life kind of pick up and teach her, what else she can do to make that her reality if she chooses.
Right. So already you're seeing, right in front of you, right, where people are being inspired. And one of the quotes, I was going to say it lower down in the program, but I think it's the perfect place now. It says, if your actions create a legacy that inspired others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. That was said by the famous Dolly Parton, right? So I love that quote, right? Because I do believe it resonates with us as coaches. And I think I can speak for Michelle, right? Where that's one of the things that we try to do as coaches, right? Where we definitely want you to, dream more, learn more, become more. Then, of course, we are considering ourselves leaders too, but we also want that mindset to really, be part of our legacy that we impart to you guys, right? Because as much as how you're starting off, most of you are just starting off, getting your feet wet, still doing things. And just from even my little interaction and just reading your bios, I can see like, oh my gosh, I would love to like follow your path and see those the great things that you guys are destined to be. But I also want you to have that mindset where your legacy, and you may say, oh my gosh, I'm so young for legacy. No, honey, your legacy starting from the day you were born and you say, right? So it's starting from that point, because it's starting with there will always be people behind us as long as you continue to live and to do more, right? So I think that is great. And that's one of the things that we also do as coaches, like even with one of my programs that I have, which is Activate Your Destiny, right? It helps you definitely to, in these trying times, it works a lot on your confidence, of course, but people often hear me talk about hope. One of the reasons that I talk about hope is because that's what Kamala has just done, right? She has just given people, right? All of us, quite frankly, but some a little bit more than others, to have that hope, right? To say, listen, just like if we were to go back into the Bible where it says the lady, she wanted to just touch that garment because she knew if she touched that garment, she would be healed. So that is what this hope does for us. And to say that, you know what? To borrow from the military slogan, we can actually be all that we can be. So with having said that, what I now want to do is just touch over to, I think I'm going to go to Cristina. It says, what do you do to work on your inner self and better manage your stressors of achieving your goal?
Yeah, so when I think of my inner self and managing stress, I have, I guess, like a mantra that I kind of use as my foundation, and then I've built upon that. So when I was an undergrad at UNC Greensboro, I went through a period of time where I kind of went full force towards specific goals that I had, and I neglected a lot of parts of myself while, hyper focusing on different aspects that kind of looked to the real world or to the outside world very successful and good. So a counselor or therapist that I ended up going to, she told me, you seem like you have a good handle on managing your time, but people, they keep saying, oh, manage your time, ways to manage your time, blah, blah, blah. But what about managing your energy? And I stopped and I didn't even know what to say back to her. And ever since then, that's something that I always keep in the back of my mind, is not only managing your time, but before that, managing your energy. Because you want to be fit. It's good to be physically present around people and, have that interaction. But if you're not mentally and emotionally present as well, because you have outspent your energy, then no one's getting anything from that. And you're only harming yourself.
Right. And that's a very good point that you mentioned about energy, because a lot of us, we end up in burnout, right? Especially if you are the type of leader, male or female, and especially if you have the type A personality, right? We tend to go, and we definitely ignore the self-care. And part of that self-care is that energy that you speak about, right? And I'm happy you brought that up. If you want to expand more on the energy conversation for the rest of, a listening audience, feel free to do so, because I think that's powerful, right? And as you can see, it's resonating there too when they're saying yes. Okay.
Yeah. I can add a little bit
Sure.
onto that. I think part of managing your energy and who you are as a person is to be patient and be present with yourself. So being aware of those like inner monologues that you have, because you shouldn't ignore certain parts. I think that a lot of times mindsets or emotions might be labeled negative, but I think that that's a harmful connotation. I think that instead we can label them as uncomfortable emotions and uncomfortable thoughts. And then having the courage to really be present and sit with those uncomfortable thoughts and emotions. And then we can work to overcome them. And in the end, that will help alleviate stressors and work towards our goals, and just being flexible with yourself and with your goals, because as you're working towards those goals, they may change. And that's okay. And I think that's beautiful. Like you were talking about our path and how that starts, you know, from the time that we're babies to however long our life lasts. Those goals throughout our life change. And I think that's what makes each of our stories so unique.
Right. So thank you so much for that. Because I the reason why I pushed you a little bit more to share with us more is because I just think that whole energy thing, because we do have to realize that the energy, if we entertain toxic people, toxic environments, that it does sap our energies, because a lot of times we feel uncomfortable saying somebody's toxic, right? And it may not be someone, it may also be a place of work. You know, it could be somewhere that you frequent a lot. If you recognize that it's toxic for you, how does it make you feel? Is it draining me or is it invigorating me? So you have to be mindful of those things. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to stress on that a little bit more. Okay, so
Judy, can I chime in just real quick on that?
Absolutely.
Please. So as Cristina was speaking just then, and then Jovita earlier talking or the question about the different generations and how Kamala Harris impacts the different generations. One of the things that I always say to my clients, my coaching clients, that is to extend yourself grace.
Right.
And that is what Cristina was just talking about. And okay, I'm 55 years old, and I think about how we raised our children. And my husband and I sometimes step back and say, wow, did we put so much pressure on them to be great academically, achieve the highest level of education, to, be a well-rounded, what activity are you going to do? You can't just go to school. You got to have some kind of extracurricular activity. How are you building your resume? Like all those things. And I wonder if, Judy-Ann, our generation did not, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have raised our children that way and should not have taught them that, because it is critically important, those things that I just said. But what I would say to my younger self now as a younger mom, is I would say, just as important as pushing for academics is teaching your children to extend grace to themselves. And I don't think that I did a good job at that. And so I wonder sometimes if we, this generation, Judy-Ann, you and I, and our generation, have created a whole generation of younger people who buy into this concept of grinding.
Well,
and if you think about what grind is, it means that
I hate that word.
Put pressure on something to the extent that it basically is pulverized. It becomes so granular until it slips through your fingers or whatever. Are you a good use if you have ground yourself to the point that you are exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, like spiritually, just exhausted in every way? And so that's one of the things that like I'm a coach, but I am expanding into mentorship.
Right.
And with expanding into mentorship, I really want to help younger women, young ladies, to realize that this whole notion of, can you have it all?
Right.
You can have it all, but just maybe not all at the same time.
Right.
And I think that maybe our generation didn't do as good a job as we could have of expressing that, yeah, you can have it all eventually. You can have it all, but just maybe not all at the same time. And if you don't have it all at the same time, there's nothing wrong with you.
Right. Now,
okay.
yeah. Now, let me pick up on that, Michelle. And I will say this. My first thing was say, we also need to extend ourselves, you and I, and the others in our age group and even above us, grace.
Absolutely.
Now, I will agree with you to say, do I think that we could have done a better job? We can always do a better job. Mm-hmm. But Iyanla Vanzant, and forgive me, lady, if I mess your name up, but I heard she say something once, and she says, your parents parented you the way they knew how at the time.
Right.
So we're still alive. So we are a work in progress. We are still learning. I've seen ways that I could have been a better parent myself. There are things I think back and I was like, dag, if I had known what I knew then, right? And
Absolutely.
It takes, you see, because I don't believe in ego. I am not perfect. There's always going to be something I could have said better. I could have done better. I could have, whatever it is, right? So we are also work in progress, and we did the best with what we knew at the time. Now that we have matured and we are maturing and we are becoming, right? We know now better information. And as we continue to get older and get into our older golden years, if you ever notice, right? I love the senior people, right? And they can tell you some stuff. You're like, dag, some of them have no filter by that age, but it doesn't matter, right? They've earned the right. But we continue to go through the process where we too are doing the best that we can. Now, to come back to what you said, it says, did we, as I said, I'm not a fan of the word, did we push them too much to grind? Possibly, yes, possibly, because of what our parents and foreparents fought for. Let's take it back to the political arena. They fought for us to vote. We didn't have those rights, so we had to make sure that we made good on top of those fights that they had ahead of us. So that's some of the reasons, right? It doesn't excuse the fact, but as I said, we did the best the way we knew how at the time. And as we now continue, fortunately, our kids are still here with us. We are still here, so we can adjust accordingly. And when we have the grandkids, we can make sure we do even a better job there. So hopefully that helps.
And that's what makes forums like this, panels like this, really important. So
right.
Because we do have a body of knowledge now that we may not have had as a 25-year-old mom or a 30-year-old.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
we still impart that wisdom now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And for the guys who are watching us, welcome, welcome, welcome. Feel free to go ahead and share. I can see some of you watching, not necessarily commenting, and that's okay. But one thing I am going to charge you to do is to go ahead and share it, because you have to know a woman, okay? Whether it's a sister, friend, mother, auntie, whomever, daughter, please go ahead and share so they too can participate in this conversation. Feel free to join us and let us know if you agree with what you're saying, or if you disagree, right? But if you disagree, you have to say why, and you have to offer an alternative, okay? Alrighty, so let's move on from there. By the way, so ladies, just based on what you heard Michelle and I just said, are you agreeing with us that, we pushed you too much? Be authentic here, be transparent.
Can I
what do you say
about that?
Yes.
Well, it's funny that she was mentioning that. It's because me and my parents have had several conversations about, I feel like there's being too much pressure put on me. And so me and my parents have had to come to an understanding that, I'm my biggest critic. And I don't know if that's just females in general, but that's just how I'm wired. And so either if it's not my parents putting pressure on me, I can perceive it that way because I'm already putting so much pressure on myself. And really, they're just trying to encourage me. So I guess it's like both ways. So we just have to come to an understanding about that.
Right. And that's a very key point, right? Where sometimes it's maybe how we say it, the communication, right? It may not land exactly the way we want it. So it may be perceived as pressure, where technically it's really encouragement, right? But the question is it that we as parents did not necessarily deliver it the way that we wanted it to land, right? And it could be the other way around too, where we delivered it, but for whatever other pressures that you're going through, you perceived it differently. So at the end of the day, we all have work to do, right? And we try, put it this way. The one thing I love to say is that understand the spirit of the person, whether it be you, the young leader, or us, the older leaders, right? Understand the spirit in which it's being said. Because one of the things that drew me to Michelle is that when we had these conversations, I could see Michelle and I had similar hearts, just to make sure that we are there for you to get you to your destination confidently, and successfully and safely. So yeah.
Something to add to that.
Sure.
I definitely agree with what Kyra said about, sometimes feeling like my parents did put a bit of pressure, but I feel like at a certain age, it kind of stopped being like, oh, I feel like they're putting too much pressure on me I felt like I took on the responsibility of putting that pressure on myself. So by the time they said something, it's like I already knew, that this might have been an area I was slacking in. And I was like, okay, so let me step it up. But at the time, it kind of goes back to what Cristina spoke about earlier. You can't just focus in on that and then forget about everything else. So I think it's important as parents. And as I'm about to become a parent, I feel like that, this is a good conversation because, I don't want to apply too much pressure to my son. I feel like it's good to definitely, think about, apply that pressure so that they understand, you have to go hard, especially being minorities. Like we have to. But just watch how you say it and then also follow it up with encouragement.
Right.
And then examples of like, okay, so if you go hard, and then give them examples of people who are in similar situations or similar work environments that they would like to be in. And then maybe, give them that to look at instead of it's always just coming from you.
Right. And that takes us into the realm of emotional intelligence, right? Because of course, we know emotional intelligence is not just being aware of you, but being aware of how your information, what you're communicating, your actions, your words is also landing and impacting the other person. Right. Or even if it's nothing to do with you being able to possibly read their body language or facial expressions or just the tone in their voice to see, okay, something is going on. So I think that's where some of that comes in there too. So, hey, Georgia, I see you said you're just joining. Welcome. Go ahead and share. All righty. So let's move on from there. And I think Trinity, I think we want to come with you with this one. He says, what can our generation do to help foster your personal and professional growth to confidently thrive in meeting your goals?
Okay, so definitely right now, this question definitely impacted me because I am reaching out to people who are in the education field and specifically teaching the things that I would like to teach. And I'm basically just asking them for their, raw experience on the path that I want to take. And one thing I think that older generations could do, one, be authentic when you speak about your experience. Don't just, just try to tell me, oh, do this, this, and this. Like, tell me why I should do this. Explain to me the successes and the failures that you had along the way, and then also when telling me your experience, when trying to mentor me, make sure that it's in a way that is positive. Don't just be, either super stern or just, I don't know. I sometimes I've experienced when I talk to people, older people about their experience or try to get help and growth and try to ask them to help me to maneuver the industry. Sometimes I feel like I get resistance
or treated like you're a child.
Yeah, that too. And I just feel like that kind of makes you feel a certain type of way. So I feel like when older people are, trying to mentor the younger people and help them to achieve the things that they have, just make sure that you are, doing it with the right intentions.
Right. So Paul also mentioned, he says young people need to be more open to criticism though. So Paul, I don't think I got that. It wasn't a sense of being open to criticism. It was more, okay, if you're going to say something to me, break it down for me. Tell me the whys, tell me the positive and the negative, and letting me understand. In other words, and I can relate to Trinity in the sense that I'm not a robot, right? So don't just tell me to do something, tell me the rationale behind it, because I believe if I have an understanding, I'm more prone to, jump on board, right? Quicker, because I understand why. So, and oftentimes we, especially I was about to say in the Black family, but I don't know what happened in the white family, so let me not generalize. But we have a tendency, I remember with my own mom, right? Who says, because I told you so. Well, yeah, I know you told me so, but why? You know what I mean? So yeah.
If I could add a little something here. So I think what I'm kind of hearing, and I know that when I let my position on this be known, sometimes it puts me in crosshairs with my colleagues or my age demographic. What I think the young people need is for us to truly be authentic and not to be hypocrites.
Right.
Because it's really easy to tell you don't do X.
Right.
And forget about the fact that you did X. It's
right.
Really, and see, my colleagues in the ministry sometimes don't like for me to say this.
Right.
It's easy for me to reel off the 10 commandments and reel off every sin.
Right.
But what the young people need to hear is, yes, Pastor Michelle did some of these things too.
Right.
But when I gave my life to Christ, and I not just gave my life to Christ, but I began to let him become Lord of my life, and it changed me and helped me make better decisions, then my life started to change. We want to try to act like the chapter of our life that you entered is how we've always been, and that just is not the case. Okay, you're gonna walk in the truth and deal with the consequences of the truth if you deal with me. The way you are now is not how you have always been. And so I think that young people are very astute at picking up on the hypocrisy.
Right.
So for the gentleman who said that young people need to be able to take criticism, I don't know that it's so much that they can't or don't want to take criticism as much as it is they really want to know the whole story. They want to know the whole truth, and it's us who have to explain that. We try to make it seem like we've never had a consequence in our life. We've never had to deal with the circumstance of a choice in our lives. And that just is not true. I have dealt with many consequences based on many choices that I made. And went back to my mom and dad, hoping they could fix it. Some of them they could, some of them they couldn't. Well, young people, y'all gonna do the exact same thing. You'll run back to your daddy, and it's some of your stuff that you did, we might be able to help you fix it. But some of it, you have to sit in it. And but when you sit in it, that's when you learn. That's when we grow. That's when we all grow, not just you. But that's when I grow as a parent. That's when I grow as a mentor. That's when I'm better able to help you. So I think that if our generation could be more authentic in how we share and what we share, I think that would help the younger generation so much. I think about the music sometimes. We act like, the music today is just so horrible, or they're singing about things that are so inappropriate. Well, you know what? There were these things back in the day called juke joints, and nobody in the juke joint was singing Amazing Grace.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Some of y'all were conceived based on relationships that started at the juke joint. So everyone talk about Beyonce dancing and jiggling and everything. There's been dancing and jiggling. Who was the predecessor to Beyonce? Tina Turner, y'all. Come on. So
she got some great legs, I gotta say.
We didn't want Tina's legs. But see, we want to make it seem like we've been, quoting scriptures and singing gospel hymns our whole lives, and that was the only thing we ever did. And that's just not real. And so I think the young people are looking for what is real.
Right.
Like,
So
Can I briefly add on to
go
that?
ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I'll try to make it short. But one thing that I thought of when y'all were talking about they just want to know why. Just to kind of emphasize that, I think that it's completely natural and innate in our human being to ask the questions of why and how, just by the simple fact of thinking about young kids. That's one of the first things that they start to talk about is why, but why? How do I do that? And I think as we grow up, that those curiosities are in some ways muted and dulled down, dampened down. And so then we learn to just go with whatever is said. And then we feel as though it's wrong to start asking questions, even though not only is that like right, but that's just who we are as human beings. So I think that we should embrace that.
No.
Then,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can stop. Okay. My one last thing is that related to the older generation growing up in a different time period with different circumstances, and therefore went about accomplishing things in a different manner perhaps than we do now. I think all that is definitely valid. But I think just being like what was being said earlier about being open and being honest, because that's one thing that I've personally seen with my relationship with my parents, is that only over the past few years have I started to see them like in all their glory with their mistakes and how they've overcome those mistakes and how those mistakes have molded them. And it makes me more willing to, one, listen to them, and then feel more comfortable coming to them with my worries, my doubts, and my questions, which I think has a reciprocal benefit for both of us.
Yeah, and I just want to add one piece to that really quickly. As far as the criticism piece, I definitely understand that comment because I was reading some of the comments as everyone was talking. But I think for me, that has to be both ways because there's no age attached to being incorrect, right? And so you could be of a certain age and still be incorrect. And that's not invalidating your experience. That's not invalidating your intelligence, but you don't know everything the same way I don't. And so I think I really love how everyone has said, the conversation needs to be open, which is exactly true, because I think that's what I benefited from the most in my upbringing was my parents always had a conversation with me. So I was always understanding the why behind what they said. And it's not, explaining to a child. They wanted me to understand because they knew once I reached adulthood, they wanted me to be able to understand those concepts already. It shouldn't be in your face once I reached 18 or 21. They wanted to that I was equipped to get to that age prior to actually reaching that age. And so I think being open and being willing to have the conversation and not have this gatekeeper spirit, being of an older generation and acting as if having these conversations or having young people move into these positions is a direct threat on where you are in your career or in your life or whatever, then we'll definitely, be in a better place.
I think that Jovita made a fantastic point, having those open conversations with your parents and them explaining the why. Like, yes, we will always respect and understand that what your generation went through, is what you all went through. And that is what has helped to shape you all. But at the same time, I believe we can't get stuck in how we were or how our parents cannot get stuck in how they were taught or how they were raised. They have to be open to changing so that they can help us, to be better, so that, maybe, okay, you were taught do this because I said so. Okay, that's how they were taught. But then they're like, okay, well, with my kids, I'm going to say do this because, and then they explain. So I definitely understand and agree 100% that, we understand how our parents are raised or how older generations were raised. But I feel like we can't use that as an excuse to, stay stuck. Right. And if you want to help someone, I feel like you have to be open to, getting outside of your comfort zone sometimes. But I mean, I understand that everyone isn't comfortable with that. And I feel like when it comes to thinking about if you want to mentor younger generations, you have to question, okay, am I mentally, emotionally prepared to mentor someone? What if someone, what if your mentee, challenges your beliefs or challenges, just your upbringing in general? Are you going to get defensive or are you going to take it as an opportunity to just think and grow and learn from that? I feel like, when it comes to mentorship and helping people to grow personally and professionally, you have to be open to just learning new things about yourself as well. It can't just be like, oh, well, this is how I am, and if you don't like it, then whatever. Like, I feel like that's not productive. And when I look for someone, that's not what I'm looking for. So if that is how you are, and if that is, how you want to be for the remainder of your time here on earth, then you need to find mentees who are okay with just accepting that you're only going to give them but so much.
All right.
It just depends. So.
Right, that's great. So Kia just says that's the worst excuse ever. I agree with you. So anyway, and then Paul says our expectation of our elders are not realistic. Not enough that has attained knowledge can transmit it. But but Paul, that's an excuse. All right, and the reason why I say that's an excuse is because elders have brains, and we can learn and we can evolve.
That's right.
I am. Those of you who know me very close, I love the elders, right? And one of the things that I love about them is that I can sit and I can have transparent conversations with them, tell them my my faults, right? The dumb things that I've done, and they will give me honest, authentic feedback. And then they will also say, girl, when I was a child, I did this too, right? So they were okay with me knowing that they, had faux pas themselves, right? So I have to disagree with you there. Thank you so much for that. But I do have to disagree with you because I do think if we stay in that mindset to say, oh, we can never change and we're expecting too much. Listen, Kamala Harris is the VP elect of the United States of America. We are moving forward, but in order to continue to move forward, we too, as the older generation, must pave the way in a way that was not paved before. Coming back to Christina's point, we don't necessarily have to do things the way they were done before. We can find new, improved, and creative ways in the way we can move forward. So I know we are now out of time. We are 3 minutes beyond, but bear with us because I think this is a great conversation. Kyra, I want to come to you. It says, what advice would you give to ladies your age and younger about navigating their path?
Well, with my journey in basketball and everything, I've really learned not only to not put boundaries on myself, but don't let other people put boundaries on me. So like, don't let people tell you how good you are or how good you're not, because at the end of the day, you know how much work you've put in to achieve a goal. You know how much work you've done to become better. Therefore, people who aren't seeing you work, people who aren't there, people who are just there to see you perform or do whatever in a certain thing, you can't let them undermine all the work you've put in.
So in other words, you're saying don't listen to everybody. Right. Okay. And you know what? So one of the things that I really want you to share with you guys real quickly is one of the reasons I got into the confidence coaching of things was because when I was a teenager, I actually had someone who told me that, I would only be a secretary. I would not ascend the corporate ladder, right? No, being a secretary is not a bad thing, but in his mind, he was actually putting a ceiling on my ability to ascend that corporate ladder and to be whatever I wanted to be. Now, when I went home to my mom, right? So my mom was, the replica of Michelle and me here right now, where she was my motivator. She was my coach. She was my mentor, right? She was my champion who basically says, why are you listening to that fool? So that ties right into what Kyra just said, where she says, don't listen to everyone, because quite frankly, a lot of people are noise. They're not necessarily out there working for your best interest. So one of the things where people said to me all the time, the word that fool have stayed with me, because in my mind, if you're telling me something that is toxic, not good, doesn't make any sense or make any sense for my life and for the path I want to go, in my head, I remember my mom. Why are you listening to that fool? So that's what's one thing that I want to stay with you, because had I not had my mom to push away that limiting belief that was being imposed upon me, I probably would not be where I am today. And I probably would not be able to moderate a panel like this, talking about how do we go forward? How do we capitalize on the Kamala effect in going forward? So one of the things that I want to say in closing is that as women, we must develop that mental resolve that will serve us from the inside out. And I also believe that you got that message here. We spoke about things from the ground up, meaning working with our parents, working with our elders, working with our peers. And we saw how we can become better leaders, but we also saw where Cristina spoke about working on the inside, on our energy. And we must monitor what we feed our minds, our bodies, and our soul, and even our spiritual lives, right? We must become women who are unapologetic in who we are and in the diversity of our differences. We must develop an unfiltered hope and do not allow our talents to remain in a box. So that's just one of the things that I want to leave you with. Michelle, as you are my co-partner in this, I want to also give you the chance to share some of your thoughts with us.
Well, first, I want to thank you, Judy-Ann, for even having the wisdom, the foresight to do this. I want to thank all of the young ladies on here. Thank you for sharing from your heart and sharing from where you are.
Right.
And I think that is the piece that is so important and so beautiful, is that we begin to share from where we are. That takes away the stigma, the shame. It takes away the embarrassment. It takes away the guilt, all of that stuff, because you are where you are. And we all function out of our level of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
We all function from our level of understanding. And so this is, it's been really good. And the comments have been good. Some of them have been interesting and would be a whole separate panel.
Right.
We're gonna let that go because, a couple of these comments, I wanted to respond to the comment, but that's not necessarily, what needs to be done today. Because one of the things that I think Kamala Harris winning as VP-elect has taught us is don't get distracted. Mm-hmm. Don't get distracted by foolishness. Don't get distracted by the naysayers. Kyra, you hit the nail on the head when you said, don't listen. I can't listen to all those people. There's always going to be somebody who's going to say you're too tall, you're too short, you're too heavy, you're too thin, you're too dark, you're too light, you're too whatever, you're too whatever. It's always going to be somebody who's going to be saying something like that. And so what Kamala Harris has taught us is don't get distracted. Don't get distracted by all of the chaos that's swirling around you. Because had Kamala Harris, VP-elect Kamala Harris and President-elect Joe Biden become distracted on Tuesday night, we wouldn't have made it to Saturday.
Right.
And so that's the thing, ladies, young ladies, Judy-Ann, Michelle, all of us, whatever your age, whatever your demographic, don't get distracted.
Right.
Get distracted.
Right.
Thank you.
So to Jovita, Trinity, Kyra, Cristina, thank you so very much. I do hope that you found it inspiring and empowering for yourself just to be able to share authentically. And I thank you so very much. I would love to have a roundup with you guys right after so we can meet in the group. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything that you're burning to say, really TBT short, that you must say? I always want to give you the opportunity. Anybody, real quick. Okay.
I would like to say that we understand that we are going to have to put in the work to get to where we want to be. Yeah. But the thing we have to understand is if you want us to work smarter, part of working smarter is using the resources that have been, given to us.
Oh,
And our parents and our colleagues, and people you just, and your friends. So that's going to be it.
All right. So thank you very much. And just for the people who are the listeners, and if you hear about it, one of the things that we want to do for you is just to be able to offer you the opportunity to build yourself up and to increase your confidence so you can be able to negotiate, so you can be that, definitely that woman who's to be reckoned with. I have a course that's Activate Your Destiny. It's one of the ones that are pre-recorded, so you can do it at your own pace. For the young ladies or the 30 year under here that are on this live, or will even hear it a little bit later on, if you'd like to take advantage of the course, the oldest person that we have on this panel is 27. So what I'm going to do for you, that course is normally $197. I'm going to make it $27. So anybody who wants to pick it up, you can quickly DM me so you can take advantage of that. And again, it's evergreen, so you could use it at your pace. So ladies, and for the gentlemen who were also on the line, for those of you who were watching, didn't comment, that's okay, but you shared and all that wonderful things. We hope you got something from this that would either help you individually or will help you in how you communicate or relate to that young lady, that woman, whoever it is, that leader that's in your life that you're responsible to help take forward. So thank you very much to everyone on the panel, and I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.